here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're your hosts, Case and Toca, where, he's that guy, the resident expert on all things legal, who can explain the most difficult topics in a manner that's simple and plain. And I'm that dude. The 2019 Southeastern Emmy-nominated personality whose passion is to inform, inspire, and yes, even entertain. Together, we're just two regular guys who live for politics, consume cable news, and love to share our very pointed opinions with you. That said, there are always so many newsworthy stories happening in our country, our state, and our city this week, like there are actually White House daily press briefings again.
Say what?
Yes, you heard me. There are actually White House daily press briefings again. Jen Psaki, the press secretary for Joe Biden, has already held two briefings at the White House in front of the press gaggle since the inauguration and has taken a decidedly more serious and professional tone than her predecessors, Kayleigh McEnany, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, and the Spice Man himself, Sean Spicer. Her focus will be on the Biden objectives of transparency and truth and not alternative facts or obsession with crowd size. The Senate officially confirms Thomasville, Georgia's four-star general Lloyd Austin as the first Black defense secretary in the nation's history. He is the second confirmed cabinet member of the Biden administration, as Avril Haines, the new director of national intelligence, was the first. General Austin's confirmation was entirely without some challenge, however, as a special waiver had to be granted by the Senate since he had not been retired from active duty for at least 7 years. The same waiver was granted to General Jim Mad Dog Mattis, who served in the same role under the previous administration. On a sad and somber sports note, legendary Atlanta Brave Hank Aaron passed away today at the age of 86. In 1974, this monumental figure in American sports broke the all-time home run record of 714 homers, held at that time by Babe Ruth. He smashed his 715th home run at Atlanta's Fulton County Stadium off Dodgers pitcher Al Downing. He finished his Hall of Fame career with a .305 batting average, hitting 755 homers with 2,297 runs batted in, and culminated his legacy by receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2002. America's Georgia attorney William Mccall Calhoun continues to be held behind bars without bond for his participation in the Capitol insurrection on January 6th. He describes his actions and the actions of the other Confederate domestic terrorists as, quote, patriotic. Well, he better get comfortable because he's going to be like a Snickers bar. He's not going anywhere for a while. COVID also continues to dominate the headlines with more than 24.5 million confirmed cases and more than 411,000 deaths nationwide at the time of our broadcast. So as you can see, there's a lot here to chat about, as usual, but instead we're going to focus on our four featured topics. Our first topic, bye, Felicia. Our second topic, hail to the chief. The third topic, year of the HBCU. And our fourth and final topic, the end game. Q is through. And now, here to provide his perspective on thoughts and views in a colorful collective is my partner on my right, chiming in to shed some light. After these 4 years we've endured, Brother Toca, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Brother Case. And Brother Case, let me tell you, I always feel that you got my back when you're to my left. So I'm so glad to see you this evening. We're just 2 weeks out from the insurrection of the domestic terrorist. And it's so interesting to me when you look at what happened. First of all, the way that the Capitol Police and other police organizations treated these white invaders with kindness, gentleness, guiding them to the exits.
They were so sweet to him, weren't they?
Very nice. And now we also see that the judicial system is doing something similar. There was a young woman who stole Nancy Pelosi's laptop. She had reported to an ex-boyfriend that she was going to sell it to the Russians, which is espionage.
To the Russians?
Life offense. And she is now out on bail. She's not even in home confinement. She's out on bail. She just has to report to her mother's home nightly.
For a potential treasonous act.
Right. Now, if you had done that, Richard, I'd be visiting you under the trial would have already occurred. I'd be like, man, I've never seen anybody get convicted so quickly. So I think that that's something that is foremost in mind, but something that I just want all of us to remember because things are so compacted now. It's easy to forget. Monday was Martin Luther King's birthday. Absolutely. And it wasn't just a day off. I think that this year, that day meant more or should have meant more to us than it has in the past, because we as an African-American family, we as a minority family, we as a family of the underserved, and we as an American family are coming out of a darkness. Mm-hmm. We are at a time where it's funny. I've spoken to a lot of my friends over the last couple of weeks, and a lot of them, even with the victory that we had with Joe Biden and the victory that we had in the Senate, with the two senatorial races here in Georgia, 3 or 4 of my friends have said, Rick, I'm depressed. We're in the middle of a pandemic. The economy may not recover. My cousin, my brother, my mother lost their job. Someone they know died from COVID. And the Republicans, despite what many of them said on the day of the insurrection, oh, this is terrible, this is horrible. Mitch McConnell on the floor. Donald Trump is responsible for this. They seem to be reverting back to their old patterns. If you've heard even their response to Joe Biden's inaugural address, which Fox News called one of the best addresses ever given.
And if Fox News did that, it had to be one of the best.
Right. So we have a situation where there is a feeling of depression that I think that many of us have. But I was thinking about that and thinking about Martin Luther King's birthday, and I came across this article that just really, it inspired me and it opened my eyes. And just very briefly, Martin Luther King in 1956, young man, was living in Montgomery, Alabama, and he received his first of many and in a lifetime of death threats. And this death threat told him basically, nigga, if you do not get out of town within 3 days, we are going to blow up your house, your wife and children in it. And King recounted 10 years later in 1966 in a Chicago speech that he at that point had a crisis of faith, that his worst fears had been met at the time. He said that ugly voice on the other end that threatened to blow up my house while I was sitting in my kitchen reflecting on theology, it completely depressed me. I thought of my little girl, my lovely wife, and that they could be taken from me at any moment. And something said to me, you can't call daddy now. He's up in Atlanta, 175 miles away. You can't even call on mama now. You got to call on something in that person that your daddy used to tell you about. The power that can make a way out of no way. And I discovered then that religion had to become real to me, and I had to know God for myself. He said he bowed his head over a cup of coffee and he asked for help from God. And he said, it seemed in that moment that I could hear an inner voice saying to me, Martin Luther, stand up for righteousness, stand up for justice, stand up for truth. And lo, I will be with you even until the end of the world. He said that he went on and he said that Jesus promised that he would never, never leave me alone. And in that Chicago speech, the thing that's so stirring is he related that in the 10 years since that had happened, despite all of his accomplishments, Nobel Peace Prize, the author of the Voting Rights Act, the Montgomery, Alabama bus boycott, etc., he had many times when he felt depressed. He told his wife when JFK was murdered, I'm next. I feel it in my bones. And he said, I don't mind telling you this morning that sometimes I feel discouraged. I feel discouraged in Chicago. As I move through Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama, I feel discouraged sometimes. Living every day under extensive criticism, even from Negroes, I feel discouraged sometimes. And yes, sometimes I feel that my work in my life has been in vain. But then the Holy Spirit enters my soul again. There's a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. And let me tell you, that is what gets me through. And so in this time of pandemic, in this time of economic uncertainty, let's lean on that faith. I mean, God willing, none of us are under threat of death at every moment as King was. But if he could have faith during those times, we can too.
Wow. Powerful words from the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And as you alluded to, we celebrated his birthday this past Monday. A day of service is always put forth in his honor. Sometimes we get a chance to commit a kind act of service. Sometimes we just use it as a restful day off. But at all times, we should reflect on the things that he had to endure, because I could not imagine trying to live through a situation where somebody says to me in a letter, look, nigga, you keep on with what you're doing, and I'm going to bomb your house with your family.
follows through
with it. Right. So, yes, the language is a little colorful, but hey, sometimes you have to be a little colorful to express the point. You're sitting here in the mix with Politics, Case, and Toca right here on 106 Live Radio, where excitement meets diversity 24/7. Feel free to call in and talk to me. I'm Case. Call in and talk to my partner. He's Toca at 404-464-8785. We'd love to hear from you. Also, reach out to us online and certainly follow us on our social media platforms with the station 106liveradio.com. So now let's transition, if we will, into our first topic. Bye, Felicia. On Wednesday, January 21st, after 4 years and about 30,000 falsehoods and pieces of misinformation that has left an ugly legacy of lies, the American nightmare is finally over. Finally! Far from the regalia and the legions of supporters for which he had hoped, the now former president was relegated to a middling loser leave town event where he gave a brief speech to an early morning address to a paltry gathering, including his adult children, his wife, a few staffers, and maybe a smattering of diehard supporters. Missing from this event were many of the Republicans who walked in lock goose step, if you will, with the man who has been the party's standard bearer since 2016. Vice President Pence, he was missing, perhaps unable or unwilling to face his former boss, who a few weeks ago didn't even call to check on his safety after the Capitol insurrection. Instead, he prepared to attend a considerably larger, more glamorous and star-studded event that would dominate the headlines and serve as the main event of the day. The same can be said for the likes of Addison, Mitchell, McConnell, the former Senate Majority Leader, who was nowhere to be found on the cold tarmac of Andrews Air Force Base. He too ghosted the former president, the disgraced and twice impeached former commander-in-chief, and was present at Wednesday's main event as well. This separation seemed to signal the beginning of a schism or a parting of establishment Republicans from an association with a man who has been more of a clear and present danger to America than Tom Clancy could have ever written about. So now that Air Force One has flown his last flight for number 45 and dropped its passenger off at his South Florida resort, Toca, is it now time for fair-minded Republicans to cut ties finally and really and truly say, bye, Felicia?
Absolutely, it is. The sad part is, I think that there are some Republicans that are showing that they're going to revert to form, that they are going to fight with Joe Biden. Reflecting back again on the speech that he gave, the inaugural address he gave, phenomenal address. He talked about peace. He didn't mention himself and say, Joe Biden, this is what I'm going to do. He didn't talk about Trump. He talked about healing the nation. And yet and still, many of these Republicans, Mr. Kevin McCarthy, even Mitch McConnell, former Speaker of the House, made it clear, Senator Majority Leader, I'm kidding, made it clear on the Senate floor that, look, this is not going to be easy for you. Just because we lost doesn't mean we're going to roll over. And he pointed to the fact that it is only a 50-50 plus one majority. Right. So I think that they should do the right thing. Now, here's the exciting thing. Business, the corporate world, as they always do, puts their money on winners. And so they are taking their money away from the Josh Hawleys of the world, taking their money away from the Ted Cruzes of the world, and taking their money away, they indicate currently, from anyone who did not support the certification and counting electoral votes of Joe Biden. And they're taking money away from any of these people that are found to have supported this insurrection. Mm-hmm. So I think that that's a very good sign, and hopefully that will put these Republicans in line. But remember, these Republicans have gone so hog wild crazy that they are now threatening Liz Cheney with a vote to take her out of her position as the number 3 Republican in the House.
Yeah, she's actually looking to get primaried in her home state of Wyoming.
Absolutely.
Right, that people are looking to say, hey, Donald Trump won the state by 70 points in the presidential election, and how dare Liz Cheney go against Trump? Well, what she did was I wouldn't say she went against Trump. Well, maybe you can say that, but she actually went for the Constitution.
Right.
She went for the American people. She went for what is right. So Liz Cheney, who, as we've pointed out on at least one or maybe 2 shows in the past, is the daughter of former Vice President Dick Cheney. And I can tell you that Dick Cheney and I, and I'm sure that my partner Toca will say the same thing, Dick Cheney and I agree like cats and dogs trapped in a closet.
Yeah, we agree on nothing.
Exactly. We don't agree on a thing. However, I have to applaud the morals and the scruples of his daughter, Ms. Liz Cheney, as she sought to stand up and say this insurrection was wrong. Trump, you are the one that mobilized people to march on the Capitol. You are the direct cause of this, and I shall not stand for this. Thus, I vote for impeachment.
Right. And here's the thing that's sad and scary. The hypocrisy. Listen, reasonable minds can disagree. Republicans, Democrats, independents can disagree along lines that make sense or advocating a position. But don't call a Black Lives Matter peaceful protest a riot and then remain silent when the white insurrectionists are breaking into the Capitol, breaking windows and killing a police officer with 5 others dead. Don't take that stance. Don't talk about being fiscally conservative when you blow up the budget with a tax cut for the rich by a power of several $1 trillion, but then say, oh no, we can't give any more relief to the country, to individuals, to small businesses because it's going to hurt the budget. Don't do that. That type of hypocrisy is the type of thing that makes people not like politicians, not believe in our system of government, because you are someone who's simply shilling for the lowest common denominator.
Yes. And folks, that's just the beginning of our conversation today. Hold on to your seats because we ain't going anywhere, and we hope you don't either as we go to commercial. We'll be right back after this.
Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and be sure to tell everyone else,
ladies and gentlemen,
about 106liveradio.com. Broadcasting live from Atlanta while serving the entire globe. It's the fastest growing radio on the web. It's 106liveradio.com.
106 Live Radio wants to inform you, as vaccines are beginning to roll out in the United States to combat COVID-19, remember, doses are limited and given out in qualifying groups. So make sure to check cdc.org or your local health facility to see if you are in a qualifying group and to receive your no-cost vaccination today.
Six Live Radio.
wants to give you the tools to tune in from anywhere to listen to your favorite shows by simply downloading the 106 Live Radio app from the Google and Apple Play Store. And enjoy some of our amazing stations like Caribbean Radio, which will take you away to the islands courtesy of DJ Dutchie and his show Caribbean Drive, Saturdays, 6 to 9 p.m. On 106 Inspiration, we're bringing you closer to your faith and helping to empower yourself with the good word, with The Upper Room, hosted by Jason and Tanasha Gray, from 8 to 12 p.m. every Sunday. And if you want to get your groove and party on, head to the 106 R&B and Throwback station. And make sure to tune in to Dre Patrick's Foreign Matters radio show from 12 to 2 p.m. and Cece's World from 4 to 6 p.m. And if you want to continue to follow, make sure to follow us on social media at 106 Live Radio on Facebook and Instagram, and make sure to visit 106liveradio.com for more. Human trafficking is a problem and is an equivalent to modern day slavery. So here are some of the facts. Estimates suggest that about 50,000 people are trafficked into the U.S. each year, and between 100,000 to 300,000 children are at risk of being victimized by domestic minor sex trafficking within that year. So we ask, if you or a loved one see or know of any human trafficking crimes, or you are a victim of such crimes, please contact the National Human Trafficking Hotline at 1-888-373-7888. That again is 1-888-373-7888. Or if you are in imminent danger, call 911 or your local law enforcement agency, and help us put a stop to human trafficking. This message sponsored by Human Trafficking, Revive and Renew Counseling.
Are you thinking of changing your marketing strategy? 106 Live Radio is the solution you need to promote your goods and services. For a limited time only, we are offering special advertising rates on our fast-growing radio network. We can also help you create an audio commercial or a website banner that fits your business needs. It is just that simple. Visit our website at 106liveradio.com for details.
Bringing you the best shows and music 24/7 on your favorite radio. It's 106liveradio.com.
And welcome back to In the Mix with Politics, Case and Toca, right here on 106liveradio.com, where excitement meets diversity 24/7. We urge you to pick up that phone and call in at 404-464-8785. And guess what, Toca? We did it, Toca. We're radio hosts in the United States.
Is that what we're doing?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just get kind of caught up sometimes with
you
that.
Get very
Kamala
excited.
Harris.
You that's your impression.
That's my impression of Kamala Harris. You know, my voice can't really get that high. You hear me?
It's not your natural register.
These pipes get low to the window. So, oh, sorry, I'm going all off kilter here. All off kilter. Right, but let me get back on kilter. Get back to talking about Bye Felicia, which was our first topic of the day, and let's talk about the excuse me, or the pardons, if you will. So right before, almost in the 11th hour of getting out of Dodge, President number 45 decided to, with the stroke of a pen or a Sharpie, like he liked to use on a hurricane map, signed off on several different pardons as he got up out of there this past Tuesday evening into Wednesday morning. So let's talk about that, Toca. What are some of the thoughts that you had behind the pardons themselves before we go and share some key pardons that may have taken place a few days ago?
Absolutely. So here I hold in my hand the list of the over 76 pardons and commutations that were granted by the president. But that is a red herring. Here's why. If we look at Article 2, Section 2, Clause 1, scope of pardon power, it says in part, the president shall be commander-in-chief of the Army and Navy, and he shall have the power to grant reprieves and pardons for offenses against the United States, except in case of impeachment, period. So what does that mean? That means that if we're looking at the black letter of the Constitution, there's nothing that says that, hey, before the president leaves, he's got to tell you everybody pardoned. And in legal circles, there's a lot of belief and chatter that, yes, this is the list that was published of people who were pardoned, but Trump can be walking around with a pardon for himself, for his children, for Rudy Giuliani, and he never has to pull that out unless and until one of them is charged with a federal offense. And then they can say, wait a second, we were pardoned by the president. That's important. That is important. Oh, and let me give you one other point too. Trump had the ability to pardon even his own company, the Trump Organization. Because
he did?
Absolutely. Again, look at that that language. That language leaves a lot that can happen with a pardon. And it doesn't say the pardon's got to be in this form. He literally had to sign on a piece of paper saying, I pardon this person, and prove that it was done before he had to leave the presidency. That's it.
So you're telling me that he could, in essence, screw America.
Absolutely.
His
Again.
friends and family could screw America.
Again.
And they could get away with it by the stroke of a pen because he's got a pardon dangling out of his pocket?
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, again, who puts it past Trump to have, done some misdirection where he says, oh, here are the people I pardoned, didn't pardon myself, and then come to find out if he's ever federally charged, yeah, he did pardon himself. And it's all perfectly legal.
Wow. Well, thank you, voters of America in 2016. This is what we got. We got the ability to be screwed and can't do we can't do a damn thing about it.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. The Senate trial's on its second impeachment, so we'll see what happens with our friend.
Yeah, the only problem is, though, I mean, the further we get away from this Capitol insurrection and the fact that he's out of office now, I don't know if we can find 17 courageous people in the Senate to have the cojones, if you will, to actually vote in favor of convicting this guy. I think they're probably just more eager to just let bygones be bygones, because according to Susan Collins in the first impeachment trial, certainly he learned his lesson and just move on to the next business of the day. Yeah,
but the hope is this, Rich, that as more and more facts come out, if we find out, for example, that there were Republicans that gave tours as recognizance for these insurrectionists prior to, that may have some bearing. If it turns out that the damage that was done was a lot more coordinated, including and up to the president, which I think, again, you may remember on a prior show, I submit that in the call that the president had with Brad Raffensperger, our Secretary of State, that he foreshadowed, because he said, hey, look, we've got something else we can do. We don't want to do it. We'd rather you just kind of help us by, finding some votes. But we got something else.
Or so.
Exactly. The only other hand they had to play was this insurrection. And so let's see what comes out. I think that if the evidence is stark enough, we may be able to find those 17 courageous senators.
Well, I sure hope so, because I would hate for exactly. I would hate for this situation to go down as one of the worst threats to democracy in the United States ever. And the person who is the linchpin of this all gets away scot-free.
Well, let me just say this. I think that if Trump is convicted in the Senate, then the next move will be, and they just need a simple majority for this, to vote that he can never hold public office again. Or in the alternative, if he's convicted of a felony, which is also something that possibly can happen on the criminal side, he will not be able to hold public office again. So there's two ways to get him. And my hope is that, again, people of good conscience look at this and make the right determination.
All right. Well, one more thing I want to pivot to before we talk about these pardons. Did you hear this week that there is talk about Trump forming a new political party called the Patriot Party?
Listen, I heard that. Here's the truth of the matter. We will find out probably the beginning of February that Trump is going to be in court every day of the rest of his life. He's not going to have time for it. Maybe he'll be able to divide his days between golf and, giving depositions on the civil side or being in court. But literally, there are 100 different entities that have been identified that are suing either him or the Trump organization, which is having a terrible economic time, as it turns out. So again, all this free time he think he's going to have, he thought he was busy as president. Ha ha ha. I think he's about to be real busy as a defendant.
Well, and you can see how well he's been running his companies. He ran them very well before he became president, ran the country very well as president, and now he's going to go back to running his companies very well. And very well, of course, is very sarcastic.
Yes.
So you're still listening to In the Mix with Politics, Case and Toca, right here on 106liveradio.com, where excitement meets diversity 24/7. And we want to hear those phone lines ringing at 404-464-8785 as we now try to talk about some of these pardons. So, Toca, let's look at some of the pardons that were issued. One of the ones that caught my eye was a gentleman by the name of Carl Andrew Boggs.
Why is that?
Here's why. Trump granted a full pardon to Carl Andrew Boggs because in 2014, Boggs pleaded guilty to federal charges stemming from a criminal investigation into the illegal use of disadvantaged business enterprises to obtain government-funded construction contracts. Now, since I deal with small, minority, disadvantaged, and female businesses every single day based on my vocation, I find this to be a little, dare I say, a little troubling that somebody created a false company, tried to use potential disadvantaged businesses, actual disadvantaged businesses, as pass-throughs in order to gain profit, and he was convicted of that, which is highly illegal. He used that to gain profit, was found guilty, serving time, and now he's been fully pardoned.
Yeah. Again, there didn't seem to be a lot of rhyme or reason to the pardons that were given out. One I'd like to talk about is one Kwame Kilpatrick. As you've heard me talk about many times before, I worked for many years and went and lived and went to law school in the great state of Michigan. My firm did work for Kwame Kilpatrick. I knew Kwame Kilpatrick. Kwame Kilpatrick was pound for pound one of the most talented politicians that I had ever seen. I mean, you have to see him. He's like 6'7", 6'8", and he's a very imposing person. Think about Suge Knight in his prime. That is how Kwame Kilpatrick looked. But it wasn't just his look. When he spoke and entered the room, he took up all the oxygen in the room because he was that magnetic. And so seeing his fall, which was well-deserved. I mean, he did a lot of bad things. Utilized the city of Detroit's money as if it was his own, as a personal piggy bank. But it made me very, very sad to see him go down.
And I can truly understand, but let's hope he wasn't like Suge Knight, hanging people over balconies by their ankles.
I don't think he was doing that, but he was doing a lot of other things he shouldn't have been doing.
I think Rob Van Vandenberg or Vanilla Ice can attest to that.
Right.
So let's talk about a few more of these. What about Dwayne Michael Carter Jr., a.k.a. Wheezy F. Baby? Got a pardon.
Little Wayne.
Lil Wayne got a pardon.
Hey, listen, for those of you that said he was a sellout for appearing with the president in the picture, I'm one of those people that said that. But I mean, hey, the game in Wayne apparently is pretty strong.
Hey, he wasn't a sellout. He was trying to buy a pardon.
That's
what he was doing.
Yeah.
Then there's also Bill Capri, a.k.a.
Kodak Black.
He got a pardon.
He did. That one I don't. Kodak might have had to drop some money in a brown paper bag behind the Walmart for Trump to pick up or something.
All right, and then of course there is the filthy, dirty, rotten scoundrel. I mean, he really looks filthy, dirty, and rotten. That's Steve Bannon.
Good God.
He looks like somebody that is hopped up on meth every single day and takes a bath in rubbing alcohol. Yeah, that's what he looks like.
Yeah, but here's the thing you got to remember. Bannon is a smart guy. I mean, he believes a Harvard graduate. he is someone who's very dangerous. If you look at some of the things he was trying to do with the Catholic Church, basically starting an offshoot and a religious movement, he literally was behind some of the QAnon conspiracy theory things. He's a dangerous person. The fact that he is out walking the streets or sitting on a 150-foot yacht, as he was when he got arrested, makes me worried for us. So
that's true. But guess what? He was a person that defrauded thousands and thousands of Trump supporters because they decided to contribute money to build the wall,
Right.
and instead they just built his coffers, his personal treasure.
They didn't give any money to that big, beautiful black wall.
Man, there was 2 miles of replacement wall that was built along the southwestern border. That was a travesty, a sham, and a mockery.
Exactly.
A sham mockery. That's what that was.
I agree.
All right. Now, we spent a lot of time on that first topic because that's probably the most interesting one. But let's pivot to our second topic now. Hail to the chief. In the prelude to the historic day, January 20th, 2021, weather forecasters in the greater DC area urge all who plan to attend the Wednesday ceremony to take precaution and to dress warmly. Why? Because it was going to be minus 45. Get it? It was going to be minus 45, like minus.
That's very funny.
45.
You do know Bernie Sanders took that literally, right?
He did take that literally with all the memes going around with him sitting around like this all bundled up.
The man was comfortable. I like the Cardi B meme. My wife showed me the Cardi B meme. I said, "Oh Lord."
I like the Last Supper meme. He was there right next to Jesus.
Hey, there you go.
And so it was. The inauguration of Joseph Robinette Biden Jr., the 46th president of the United States and second Catholic in American history, and Kamala Devi Harris, the 49th vice president and first woman, first Black, and first South Asian in American history, was definitely minus 45, as in missing the 45th president who chose to spurn tradition, tuck tail, and ungraciously fly the coop into history as perhaps the worst and most corrupt office holder in the recollection of most who have ever called the United States home.
I don't want to interrupt your monologue, but I think we as a show have to take a stand. He was the worst president in the history of these United States, period, bar none, finished.
And I said that last week too. Yes.
Yeah.
If anything that you could ever have a president for, he was the worst.
Absolutely.
The ceremony and significance of the day needed not be marred by his presence, and thus his absence was merely a footnote. Nonetheless, at 11:49 a.m., President Biden took the official oath of office as Chief Justice John Roberts officiated the swearing in, where mere moments before, Associate Justice and First Latina Sonia Sotomayor administered the oath of office to the vice president. A couple hours later, the newly minted vice president presided over the swearing in of the first Black senator and first Jewish senator from Georgia, Reverend Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff, respectively, and the first Latino senator from California, Alex Padilla. Now that President Biden is officially behind the resolute desk in the Oval Office, and the Senate and the House are controlled by Democrats, albeit by thin majorities, is this the time for the Biden agenda to be as robust as possible, go big or go home in a progressive direction, or should the president look to gain a coalition of Republicans by including some of their legislative proposals as part of his overall plan?
It is time to go big or go home. Here's the thing. Biden is talking about there being bipartisanship. He's talking about there being healing. But here's the one thing that we have to remember. He learned the lesson that President Obama had to learn the hard way with Obamacare. And that was for a year, President Obama tried to work with the Republicans to pass it. That was a year lost in the 2 years that he had all three branches of government. And the Mitch McConnell, who was the Speaker of the House then, is the Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader now. Sorry, I keep saying Speaker. He also at that time tried to defeat the whole agenda that Obama had. So Biden has learned that lesson, and I think he's going to put out a olive branch. They have a call on Sunday with this bipartisan group of congresspeople and senators to talk about trying to push forward the agenda. But I think you will see him very, very quickly move in two directions. One is to utilize the 50-50 majority that they have plus one with Vice President Harris acting as a tiebreaker. And two is by using reconciliation, which means that anything tied to the budget can be passed through the Senate with a simple majority. Yes. It doesn't have to fall prey to the filibuster, which means that any senator can sit there and block a piece of legislation, and the only way to override it is with 60 votes.
Right. Like when Ted Cruz sat in the halls of the Senate and read, I know I am, I eat green eggs and ham, or however the story goes.
Right.
He sat there and read Dr. Seuss to filibuster important legislation that could have positively affected the citizens of the United States.
Right. And that brings up another very interesting issue, which Joe Biden was asked about, or I'm sorry, his press secretary was asked about, he was asked about, and has not really directly been answered, and that is, will you support doing away with the filibuster? And the progressive caucus on the Democrat side definitely wants to do away with it, because they realize at that point they can just pass legislation all day. All they need to do is get that 50 plus one. They got to get Joe Manchin, who's the most conservative Democrat in the Senate, to go along with them, or get a Republican, say a Mitt Romney, a Susan Collins, to go along with them, a Lisa Murkowski. But I think that they ultimately are going to do away with the filibuster. Now, Mitch McConnell is holding out now and not trying to eke out a power sharing agreement, because he said he wants the guarantee from the Democratic leader of the Senate. He wants Chuck Schumer to agree that they will not do away with the filibuster. And I don't think that Chuck Schumer is going to go for that.
As he shouldn't.
He should not.
You're still listening to In the Mix with Politics, Case and Toca. I'm Case and he's Toca, right here on 106liveradio.com, where excitement meets diversity 24/7. Need you to call in at 404-464-8785 and join the conversation as we talk about some of the executive actions so far that Biden has taken, some to overrule some of the nonsense that Trump had put into place, or didn't even take the authority to put in place, such as the 100-day mask challenge, where on federal properties and through interstate travel, masks are going to be required. And he's asking every single American for 100 days just to mask up, just to put on a mask, a lovely Calvin Klein mask, like what my partner Toca is wearing.
FUBU.
Or FUBU, for us, by us. Thank you, Damian Johns.
Thank you.
To stop the U.S. withdrawal from the WHO, the World Health Organization, extending eviction moratoriums, extending a pause on student loan payments, fortifying DACA, reversing a travel ban from Muslim majority countries, halt the border wall construction, which really didn't get started much anyway, and to rejoin the Paris Climate Accord. All things that would be beneficial to the citizens of these United States.
Right. And I think we should be impressed not only by Joe Biden's rhetoric, what he said, but no, he literally on the day he was sworn in got to work. Now, I challenge anyone here to tell me when Donald Trump actually got to work and started trying to move legislation and trying to do things for the United States.
Well, we could sit here and have an entire show about the work that he didn't do, and the amount of times that he fired up the golf cart driving around trying to play 18 holes. But we've got to take our time now and just highlight just a couple of other things real quick before we move on. Two things I wanted to bring to your attention about the inauguration. One, Ms. Amanda Gorman, that poet laureate that just absolutely moved the crowd, like Eric B. and Rakim talked about many, many years ago. I mean, I sat in awe as she was replete in her yellow dress and ensemble. And she talked about, just as a little quote, she said, "Where can we find light in this never-ending shade?" That's what the past 4 years have been, exactly. A never-ending shade. And then in sartorial splendor, there was Kamala Harris's nephew, who had those $2,000 Dior Air Jordan 1s that he rocked at the inauguration. I thought that was pretty cool.
Wait, I can't let you leave without the most fashionable person, if not only at the inauguration, but on the planet, Michelle Obama. Michelle, listen, my wife always says, look, the style that you wear should reflect who you are. Well, if that's true, Michelle Obama is truly the most intelligent, most beautiful person on the planet. I could not believe how just amazing she looked.
Yes. She and former President Barack Obama always make a splash when they enter.
Absolutely.
And right now, we're going to take a break so that when we come back, we can make a splash as we go ahead and look to wrap up these last two topics. You're listening to In the Mix with Politics, Case and Toca.
Download the 106 Live Radio app from your Google Play Store. Or find us on the TuneIn app. Keep us locked in for your favorite hits. Only on 106 Live Radio.
106 Live Radio wants to inform you as vaccines are beginning to roll out in the United States to combat COVID-19. Remember, doses are limited and given out in qualifying groups. So make sure to check cdc.org or your local health facility to see if you are in a qualifying group and to receive your no-cost vaccination today.
In the last 8 months, we have been uncomfortable and have dealt with many controversial situations. We have experienced a pandemic, a financial war, a civil war, which is now bogged down to a racial war. We'd like to invite you to sit in at 106liveradio.com with me as the host, Cynthia Harper, as we talk to America's leading CEOs on where is their stand and commitment to rewriting the narrative on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Because this situation can change a world, one person, one company at a time, we'd like to have your input at 106liveradio.com on the C. Harper Show as we continue to help rewrite the narrative of racial and inclusion.
St. Louis, you can make it. Bless up.
Are you an up-and-coming musician that needs a platform to premiere your songs? Morning Rise is looking to promote your music during our new musician segment. So please submit your songs to 106livemusic@gmail.com and tune in to the Morning Rise with your host KB from 6 to 10 a.m. weekdays on 106liveradio.com.
America, land of the free. It's at the core of who we are. Freedom. The freedom to live without fear, to drive through all 50 states, to sleep safely in our own beds, the freedom to jog where we please, to watch birds in the park, to wear a hoodie, the freedom to breathe. Before we celebrate the freedom most Americans have, we must fight for the freedom all Americans deserve. Because no matter your religion, gender, disability, age, race, all lives can't matter until Black lives matter.
Are you thinking of changing your marketing strategy? 106 Live Radio is the solution you need to promote your goods and services. For a limited time only, we are offering special advertising rates on our fast-growing radio network. We can also help you create an audio commercial or a website banner that fits your business needs. It is just that simple. Visit our website at 106liveradio.com for details.
We are broadcasting live from our Atlanta studio, 106liveradio.com.
And I told you, we're back. We're back.
We are
back. Over here, you've got Case. Over there, you've got Toca. We are in the mix with politics, Case and Toca, broadcasting live on 106liveradio.com, where excitement meets diversity. They collide. They come together 24/7. 24/7. All right, we're going to move on to our third topic. And we talked so much about our previous topics. We're going to try to see if we can slide right through these last two. the year of the HBCU. So since before America's inception, the pursuit of higher education in this country has been largely centered around predominantly white colleges and universities, or PWCs. Founded in 1636 in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Harvard is the oldest institution of higher learning in the country. Paired with the Yale University, which was founded about 70 years later in New Haven, Connecticut, these two institutions are considered by some to be among the best, if not the best, in the world. Other PWCs like Stanford University in Palo Alto, California, or the University of Texas in Austin, Texas, or even the University of Michigan, shout out to you, Toca, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, continue to receive acclaim as top universities in the country. But what about those schools which were formed as a result of barring the entry of Black students from PWCs and created as the only true option for their post-secondary education? Historically Black colleges and universities. So in 2020, HBCUs have been brought to the forefront of American consciousness as Kamala Harris, a Howard University grad, has just become the first woman to hold national office as the nation's first Black and South Asian vice president. Reverend Raphael Warnock, a Morehouse man who's followed in the footsteps of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., was just elected as the first Black senator from Georgia. Stacey Abrams, a Spelman alumna, almost single-handedly transformed Georgia's voting designation from a deep red state to a blue state. Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, a FAMU rattler, was the first person of renown to formally endorse the then candidate Joe Biden. House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn of South Carolina State distinction led the charge to resurrect the flailing Biden campaign and propelled him to the presidency. With the accomplishments of those esteemed representatives of Black excellence overall, and HBCUs in particular, can we now start placing many of these schools on par with their white counterparts and update conventional wisdom among all people, not just Blacks, that these schools are places where leaders are shaped and made?
Oh, absolutely. As you know, Richard, I am a proud graduate of Xavier University. My parents went to Xavier University and met there. I went to Xavier University, and Xavier University is the oldest Black Catholic college in the country.
Mm-hmm.
It was founded originally in 1915. It was founded in its current location in 1925, and it boasts more African Americans go to med school, more Black students go to med school that graduate from Xavier than any other college in the country.
Oh wow, that is an extremely high level of accolade that you just talked about there, Toca.
Oh yeah, and here's the thing: HBCUs are having their moment. We can talk terribly about President Trump, and we should, but in 2020, Congress, on a bipartisan basis, passed the Futures Act, which gave an annual stipend to all HBCUs of $250 million, and President Trump signed that. So that was huge. Biden has pledged in his $1.9 trillion budget to give $70 billion to HBCUs over the next 4 years. There's been significant investment last year and again now in 2021 in HBCUs by a business. Bloomberg gave $100 million to 4 historically Black medical schools. Mackenzie Scott gave $6 billion to HBCUs, and Reed Hastings of Netflix, president of Netflix, gave $120 million. And the list goes on and on. I think that because of what was happening, the racial awakening in the United States last year and continuing into this year, I think that there is an economic outpouring to HBCUs. I think people now realize that future leaders come from HBCUs, and my hope is that that will continue moving forward.
Good deal. So let's give a shout out to the Hampton universities, the Southern universities, Grambling State, Alabama A&M, Alabama State, Tennessee State, Kentucky State, ladies and gentlemen. Let's give a shout out to those great and wonderful institutions that are providing students who go to those schools with great educations and positioning them for success in the future.
Right. And let me just shout out Dr. Forrest Michael Toca. My brother went to Morehouse.
Oh, so he's a Morehouse man.
He is a Morehouse man. Yes, sir.
There you go, Michael. All right. So now we're going to transition to our fourth and final topic really, really quickly, which is the end game. Q is through. So QAnon, or Q as it is in its abbreviated form, is defined as the clearly disproven and discredited belief that there's a secret cabal or group of Satan-worshiping pedophiles where, according to believers, members of the cabal are primarily Democrat politicians and celebrities. This past Wednesday, many of the believers saw January 20th as a, quote, day of reckoning where the brewing storm would rage. Rolling blackouts were supposed to happen. Military tribunals led by Trump were to take place where Joe Biden would be arrested and tried for conspiracy. The result would be mass executions of Democrats in the streets. Well, as we all know, that did not happen as Joe Biden was in fact inaugurated. The hopes of the faithful were dashed and the conspiracy theory was laid to rest. Quote, nothing was a common refrain tweeted or text or put in messaging apps on social media and other platforms as these believers faced the harsh reality that they were not believing in reality. According to an anonymous, and gosh, say that 10 times fast. According to an anonymous member, quote, we all got scammed and now we sit with egg on our faces. An even more ardent and strident follower. Let me get this audio situated right here, Toca, so you can hear this, because I couldn't believe it when I first heard it myself. There was someone who was just so distraught at the fact that somehow this thing wasn't going to take place. Let me just see if I can share with you what this person said. It was just absolutely unbelievable. Here she is now.
If you see this, please save us. I don't even see our American flag anymore. Biden's talking with some kind of crazy flag. This is America. This is our land. Please, President Trump. Please, I hope you have a plan.
She's calling for Trump to have a plan to save them.
She's calling Trump like Trump was God.
Exactly.
I mean, that's almost like you would expect someone was down on their knees praying to God to help them. That's wow.
So now, as a result of all of this, let me ask you, you've got folks like Marjorie Taylor Greene, who ran as someone who was supported by QAnon. Angela Stanton King, who's Martin Luther King's niece, that did the same thing, and Lauren Boebert of Colorado. So in the next maybe 20 seconds or so, do we support these people going forward, or do we just throw them on the ash heap of history as people that we need to get rid of and get out of the political discourse?
Very quickly, I think that we do need to support them. We need to try and help them, and here's why. I saw a report talking about QAnon supporters and the thought that most of them were like that woman that was on the floor writhing, calling for Trump, I think is a little misplaced. I think that there are some people that have lost everything. CEOs from companies who, because of COVID, lost their businesses. People have lost their mother, father, sister. And so they turn to something that makes no sense, but they turn to it in desperation. And I think we have to realize that this is America for them too. We need to try and bring them back into the fold of the American family.
You're a much nicer guy than me, but what a way to end the show. Our first show under the Biden administration. Want to give a shout out to our producer, Dakota, today, who was on the board, handling everything, keeping us technically sound. My partner on the microphone next to me, as always, that boy Toca. He was doing his thing, hitting it out of the park like Hammering Hank. And as always, thanks to you, our loyal listeners. Thanks to you. Come back next week in the mix with politics, Case and Toca, right here on 106liveradio.com, where excitement meets diversity.
Shout out to the captain of the ship, Richard Case.
24/7.